Welcome to the Clean Water Podcast Series from the University of Arkansas Cooperative Extension Service. I'm Colin Massey, County Extension Agent for Agriculture and Water Quality in Washington County. What's your name and title?
I'm Rob Moore. I'm the Programs Coordinator for the Boston Mountain Solid Waste District.
And what does Boston Mountain Solid Waste District do?
So what we do is we help manage and support waste throughout Madison and Washington County, so solid waste management. We deal in recycling, we run our own materials recovery facility, we work on developing opportunities for things like composting or the future of waste, and then we work very closely with our private industry, our landfill, and then our municipalities to help support responsible waste management.
And you do education.
Right. So yeah, I cover program coordination and environmental education.
Great. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut that out. But how big of a problem is litter?
In Arkansas alone, litter is an astronomical problem. When you multiply that by the size of the United States and the population that we have, it's pretty unbelievable what a problem it is. Just last week, in one of our smaller creek cleanups that the Beaver Watershed Alliance does, we pulled in over 2,000 pounds of trash in a matter of 3 or 4 hours. This is in a smaller stream. When you get into the larger streams, the White River, the Arkansas, we're talking about tens of thousands of pounds of trash per year. In northwest Arkansas, we have a huge problem with illegal dumping. So everything from tires to household trash to fertilizers and chemicals, it's a big problem for us. Part of that is cultural. Part of that is the dispersion of services. So some people have to drive a really long way to get rid of their trash or get rid of, find viable options for recycling. And we have 3 enforcement officers in our district that are working full caseloads constantly and barely scratching the surface of the problem. So on a regional level, it's pretty astronomical.
If you were going to ballpark a figure of how much it costs in the United States to deal with this problem?
Millions, if not billions. It's huge. I mean, if you think about, a landfill fee for the public may be $48, $50 around here. If you live in New York City, $75, $80 a ton. And now you talk about the government infrastructure necessary to do things like illegal dump cleanups, cover the irresponsible ways that people get rid of waste, and then the oversight. I mean, you talk about the EPA and Department of Environmental Quality. That alone is millions of dollars. These budgets just escalate and escalate. I would say it's safe to say that we're talking about billions. Yeah.
Would you say that most of it is just irresponsibility?
It's a good question. I think that irresponsible disposal is a large problem. I think that one of the biggest problems is we don't see waste as a resource. So if we don't want something, we immediately think of it as a problem that we need to get rid of. Nobody wants a landfill in their backyard. And so nobody wants their trash near them, but nobody wants to take responsibility for the value that our waste has. So that creates a problem where we have all of this waste and nobody wants it anywhere near them. And so I think it's a mixture of irresponsibility and just lack of knowledge. I mean, people don't understand that a large percentage of the waste stream is reusable. In general, I think that at least a quarter of what we produce daily is immediately reusable. So it's still, every plastic bottle we use, that plastic will be here forever. Those plastic, I've used a single plastic bottle, $1 plastic water bottle for 2 years. Gets soft, it doesn't ever stop holding water. And when we think about that, and then you take into account, say, food, right? I mean, the amount of food we're throwing away, a couple of pounds a person per day. And you escalate that by the number of people in our region alone, and the problem is pretty large. So I think there's a number of different... I think that another huge issue is we don't realize that when you talk about trash, we're actually talking about 10 to 15 completely independent markets, completely independent identities. There's trash, and then you have landfilling, you have incineration, you have all of these different ways to deal with things we really don't want. But then within recycling, copper is a completely separate market from aluminum. So one of the biggest problems is that waste has so many different denominations. Right? So when we think about our waste, we have our landfill material, which is the stuff we really don't want. And that can be landfilled, or we have waste to energy and incineration plants at some parts in the country. Within recycling, within metals alone, we have steel, copper, aluminum. Each one has an independent market, similar to the way we think of, say, crude oil as a market, which has fluctuations and all of these different international politics and markets and selling and buyers and all that comes in for each market individually in recycling. And so our tires have to be dealt with completely different than every kind of plastic, than every kind of metal, and then every kind of paper. And so it is a much larger problem, I think, than people realize, because they think I have one trash service, where really you have anywhere from 20 to probably 30 different organizations touching that product from when it leaves your house to when it ends up wherever it's going.
It's a complex problem that sometimes is driven by convenience.
Absolutely. And I think it really ties in. I mean, I constantly am working with, the watershed alliances. I'm working with the extension office. Our water quality, our air quality, and our trash control are all related. All right, we have methane coming off of our landfills, which needs to be properly disposed of for air quality. We have illegal burning in our state, which is a huge problem for air quality as well as water quality. And so it also, it sometimes feels like I'm a part of every industry because I'm yet to find an industry that is purely zero waste.
So you and I, we live in an interesting area because we have a decent mix. I know you work in the rural areas as well as we have a pretty large urban area here as well. And we both participated in stream and creek cleanups. What do you find most when you're doing a stream cleanup?
It's very regional. So you're right. We have the 49 corridor, and that's a very urban area. So a lot of the trash there, our roadsides are a huge problem with the trash. And then in our creeks, we find urban trash. We find a lot of fast food wrappers. We find tires and things like that. In our rural areas, we find a lot of household trash. People are farther away from trash, and it's in your neighborhood. There's not a lot of places to just quickly get rid of your trash. If you live off of a dirt road in southern Madison County, you have to drive a long way to dispose of that properly sometimes, and it can be expensive to have a hauler come out to your property to pick that up. So in our creek cleanups, it's fascinating because you can learn a lot about a region from their trash. I feel like often people want to, keep their identities private, and they do all of these things on the front end to avoid that, and they never think about their trash. And so they throw a bag of trash out. Imagine looking in your trash can and seeing what you could learn about yourself from that. We know your eating habits, what you drink and eat and how you spend your money and where you go and what you do. And we're not monitoring. This isn't a monitoring issue, right? This is an issue of we are not responsible for what we put out there. So when we go into a creek, we have chemicals. Huge issue. I've found oil cans, I've found cars and lawnmowers, and all that's a direct problem because it is polluting the water source. But then we also have problems of huge tire dumps that are affecting stream movement. It's amazing when we talk about a refrigerator that's been buried, which is a huge problem in some of our rural areas. We have Freon, right? And that can get into the air. We have whatever was in there decomposing, right, which the plastics and whatever else can get in there. We also have the actual unit. There are places on our riverbanks where we have tire dumps especially that we can't take them out because it would create so much erosion on the stream bank. So it's almost like you have a construction problem, a recycling problem, an air quality problem, and a water quality problem.
You answered my next question there. Nice. What would you say is the best thing that people can do to prevent this kind of waste?
I think personal responsibility is always the number one way to approach any problem. If you try to approach waste, even from a regional perspective, it becomes very overwhelming very quickly. Even as a full-time professional in the waste industry, I can barely keep up with grasping the scope of our problem. But it's really easy for me to look in my own trash can. I think one of the best things people can do is look at what's in your trash before you take it out. What percentage of your trash could you have composted in your backyard? What percentage of your trash could you have taken out and recycled? Look in the back of your truck. Right? Do you throw stuff in the back of your truck so it can fly out because you're not paying attention? What do you do with your used motor oil? What do you do with your cooking oil? What do you do with your electronics? I think that if you educate yourself on your personal waste, then you end up learning about almost all types of waste. Because what's fascinating is municipal solid waste, so our waste, not industrial waste, covers a way larger variety of our industry than industrial waste. Industrial waste, you have one product and a ton of oversight and a ton of management, and your bottom line is being affected. Right? For you at home, you don't realize what your trash bill is. Oftentimes you don't see it. It's included on a water bill. Right? And so learning about your own personal investment in the waste industry, you end up learning about all types of it. And one at a time. Okay, I got this cell phone. Our cell phone break every year on purpose, right? We got to go get a new cell phone and a new computer and a new TV. That alone, you can learn an immense amount about the way the electronics are handled. Where is your local household hazardous waste facility? Where can you responsibly get rid of your electronics, your motor oils, your fertilizers? And then when you go down and find out about those things, oh yeah, and there's a recycling center next door. Oh wow, you take used cooking oil. I think that the individual going out and learning about what they produce is far more important than knocking on your neighbor's doors and telling them what to do with their waste or calling an enforcement officer about a dump. Those things help, but personal education is far and away the most important way that you can affect our waste stream.
This may be the same question, just stated differently, but if you could tell the public one thing about litter or waste, what would it be? If it's the same.
Sure. Well, no, I think that it is important to realize that we pay for this one way or another. I think that a lot of times we disassociate ourselves from costs because we don't see a bill. When I take a bag of trash to my local MRF, my local materials recovery facility, or my local transfer station, I may see the $2 cost of that bag of trash. And I may say, that's $2, and if I go down the road and dump it out the back of my truck, it's not $2. But that enforcement officer, who is a government employee, is going to have to go out and clean up that trash. And when they clean up that trash, especially for larger dumps, right, you dump one bag of trash and that turns into a dump. Right? Well, now that's usually off a bridge because you can stop real quick, throw it off the bridge, and be done with it. So then it becomes a dumping place. And then 15 or 20 people dump. So then when we show up to clean it up, right, not only does this involve enforcement, right, this involves bringing out a huge truck, getting multiple employees to load this stuff, pull it out. We may need come-alongs. We may need trucks. We may need a dumpster. Right? We're going to have to work with private landowners. We're going to have to cut fences. It's going to affect local agriculture. It's going to affect land use. We're going to have to call you and have the Extension Service come out and do water quality testing. We're going to have the Watershed Alliance come out and look at stream bank erosion. Right? We're going to have to call, in some instances, ADEQ. And we're going to have hazmat teams come up. Right? A hazmat team alone, even if they're already in the area, is $5,000 for them just to be there. We learned this not long ago. So for $5,000, they will show up and talk to you. Right? That is one thermometer with some mercury. Right? You spill some mercury in the wrong place, and all of a sudden, we've taken $5,000. And that money doesn't come out of thin air. Right? This is taxpayer money. Or, in our case, this is money that is tacked onto landfill fees. So we don't get direct taxpayer money, but we get money from our landfill. And there's an environmental charge that you pay on every ton of trash. So I think it's important to remember that while it feels like a lot of money, right, that $2, the minimum fine right now is $185. There's currently a bill in Congress trying to raise it to $2,000. These things, we're paying for them one way or another. Just like our water quality, just like our wastewater, we hide these costs. We don't want to think about them. We don't want to talk about them. We're paying for them. No matter where you live, no matter who you are, you're paying for trash. And you pay a lot less if you do it responsibly. And you pay even less if you recycle and compost. Because every pound of trash that you put in a landfill, you pay for. Every pound you recycle is free. So when you take it, literally every time you dump something, it is as though you paid double for it. Because you paid for all the services, they're going to have to clean that up for you.
Right. Thanks. Anything else Rob Moore wants to tell the world?
Oh, God. I couldn't even begin. No, I think that definitely educating yourself is very important. I think reaching out to your local waste district, your local extension service, your local watershed alliances. Northwest Arkansas is privileged in that we have an immense government and nonprofit presence in sustainability and environmental issues. We really are privileged with the amount of private money that people are willing to spend. Our companies are willing to support us. Our local businesses are willing to support us. Our governments are willing to support us. Our municipalities, our mayors are incredibly supportive. My board of directors is 2 county judges and 10 mayors. And all of them have been nothing but helpful. So we put all this time and money into creating these services, and the only thing we're lacking is people using them. Right? So we have all of these people that are willing to do creek cleanups, but it would make a whole lot larger of a difference if we didn't have to be cleaning up our creeks every single weekend. If we didn't have, I have 9 creek cleanups between the first of the year and May. And we're talking about a region, maybe a 50-mile circle from where we're sitting right now. So for me, it's just really important that we tap into what we already have available. Go to those meetings, get that free food, talk to those people, and then learn how it affects you. I think that in some ways it is best if we be a little bit selfish. If we say, what's my waste stream? How can I save money? How can I protect my environment? How can I protect my livestock, my well water, the deer that I'm hunting? I mean, all of these things are connected. And I don't buy the argument that sustainability is a liberal movement. I don't buy that. Right? For me, it's conservative. We are conserving resources. We are protecting our wildlife and our land and the way of life that we value here in Arkansas. And I think that there are very few places in the country that our mission lines up so incredibly well with who we are as a people in Northwest Arkansas.
Great. Well, thanks, Rob.
Yeah, not a problem.
Visit us on the web for fact sheets and more at www.uaex.edu. This podcast was funded through a grant through the Arkansas Natural Resources Commission and Environmental Protection Agency.